Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Ferry Hawks baseball.
This week, come out to the ballpark as the Ferry Hawks welcome in the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars at Staten Island University Hospital Community Park for a homestand on June 10th. For a 5-game series as the Ferry Hawks welcome in the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars. Individual game tickets start at just $12.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Just in time for our 250th birthday as a country, a great big new book by Eric Metaxas, one of our favorites. You've seen him a million times on TV. Maybe you read his mega book, Bonhoeffer. This is called Revolution, the Birth of the Greatest Nation in the History of the World. A new accounting by Eric Metaxas, and he is the best-selling author of Bonhoeffer. This is the Super Centennial Edition, 1776 to 2026. Welcome, sir. How are you? And congratulations on the new book.
Thank you so much, Greg. Listen, this is a day, you dream about. I mean, this is like 2 years in the making. The writing just about killed me. Like, I'm not really exaggerating too much. It was tough because it's a big book, and it is the story of the whole story, the epic story of how was our nation born 250 years ago. So, you got to tell what happened to lead up to Lexington and Concord. So it starts around at the end of the French and Indian War, kind of the battles in Boston, the crazy stuff. And obviously then you get to the Boston Massacre, the Tea Party, Lexington and Concord, and on and on and on. But these are the great stories of our history. And I felt this compulsion. I said, you and I know that in the last decades, Americans have drifted away from knowing this stuff. If you stuck a microphone in anybody's face in 1960 on Main Street America, they knew all this stuff. They can give you chapter and verse on details and stuff. We need to know this history. It's beautiful. It's heroic. Some of these heroes are so amazing that it's horrifying that we don't know their stories, don't know their names. And so it's all in the book. I said I want to be definitive. I want to tell all the stories. I believe I tell it in a way that's highly readable, because if it's not readable, turns out people won't read it. So I just feel really excited. Some of it's funny, some of it's crazy, but it's our history. And this is the 250th. I call it the Super Centennial. And I said, this is the time, this is the summer. We need to read our true story. And if you read it, you want to be part of the story. You start realizing, you know what, this isn't over. This revolution, John Adams says there's a revolution before the revolution, and then Benjamin Rush says there's a revolution after the revolution. This goes on because, you have to maintain your freedom, which means you have to understand how we got there in the first place. So, you can tell I'm a little bit excited.
Well, congratulations. You should be. It's a massive book in the best possible way. A lot of books that get published these days are thin. They're very thin. You don't feel like you're getting your money's worth. This is dense, quite frankly, and good for me especially. It has pictures of paintings and maps, and that's great.
Loads of pictures, yeah.
Hey, by the way, Super Centennial. Man, that's what we should be calling this thing. Did
I not tell you this? That one, I got that idea a year and a half ago. I said, it's called a semi-quincentennial. Nobody's going to say that, least of all President Trump. So I thought of this term supercentennial, and I'm not kidding. And you know me. I thought, I believe God gave this concept to me. It's such a crazy thing. Where did I get this idea from? And I said, if that's true, I'll get a chance to share it with the president. And long story short, I shared it with him. He got excited about it. He mentioned it on Fox News, and he was talking about it and whatever. And then I guess he forgot all about it. But I have the video of him going on and on about the term supercentennial. So it's on the cover of my book. And I think we need to celebrate. You and I remember the bicentennial. We were kids. It's like there's something exciting about this thing. This is the nation's supercentennial. I was alive during the supercentennial. It's a big deal. And listen, I really do believe it is a big deal in the sense that with this president, we are – if that bullet had killed him, it's game over for the United States of America. This is not, I'm not one of these people that believes, oh, well, the pendulum swings both. No. It was over. What we have had, which we haven't deserved for 250 years, was on the verge of leaving. It was on its way out. This president, by the grace of God, understands that we need to make America great again. We need to go back to the beginning. We need to go back to basics. We need to clean up our disgusting fountains. We need to deport criminal illegals. We need to, secure the border. We need to. There's so much that needs to be done, and it wasn't getting done. And so I really believe we're on the right path. I'm excited. But at the heart of it all is we the people have to be we're the folks who actually govern ourselves. So everybody in America is responsible for this information, for knowing our story, knowing what our liberties are, how it works, why it's worked for so long, and how it will go away if we do nothing about it. So for me, I'm a man on a mission. This is not just a book, to be honest.
No, it's beautiful. By the way, I remember you said that during the campaign. Hey, it's all on the line here. We will lose our country if we lose this election. What would have, I mean, and actually, I never, you really, I remember well. I'm like, wow, I know the stakes are high. What would have happened? What would have happened if Kamala Harris had become president? How would it all have gone down?
I mean, look, let's first of all look at the fact that I am 1,000% convinced the election was stolen. The more time passes, the more obvious it's
I mean, in 2020.
The 2020, that the Democrats would do anything. They are not against stealing and lying and whatever. They've become the party of stealing your money and fraud and lying and what. They don't care because they don't have any principle other than power. We want power. We don't have any highfalutin ideas about liberty or America. We want power. And they would do anything to get it, just as the communist Chinese would do anything to keep power. That's just the way it is. And so they were already doing it under the Biden administration. We all know he was not running the government, that a coterie of super radical leftists with Obama, in the basement with a joystick, they were all doing things that old Joe Biden never would have done. He was never that radical, but he was a figurehead, an effigy. The autopen president says it. And that's actually true. And the crazy thing is, Greg, we don't want to live in a world where that could be true. We just want conspiracy theorists to talk about this kind of stuff. But the fact is, it is true. Just as much as the Holocaust happened, horrible, evil things happen in history. We need to be honest about it. And I think that what they were doing in the 4 years would have simply continued. And for that to have continued is honestly, again, there are a lot of people that live in this fantasy that, everything's, if it's not great, it'll get great again. Everything's fine. It's like, no. Have you heard of Auschwitz? If you're in a boxcar going to Auschwitz, you don't say, hey, it'll all work out in the end. Sometimes it doesn't work out in the end. Sometimes evil wins and you have to fight. And I'm absolutely convinced that we were well on our way to losing all of we already had lost our freedoms. When I think of the COVID lockdowns, when I think of the people like me were censored on social media for saying things that were actually true in the United States of America. We were demonetized, and this happened to friends of mine who went to J6, who did less than nothing just because they loved their country. They were put in prison, trumped up charges. I mean, evil that I thought, this can't happen in America. This will never happen in America. It was happening. They weaponized the government. And so if we don't undo all of that, and I mean really, really undo it and get justice and put the people behind bars who did this stuff, if we don't get serious about that, we will lose the country. But I think, we're on the path to do that. But it's not exactly easy, as we've seen. It's a huge battle. And so I believe this president is, God's man for the job, to be honest.
Putting Joe Biden aside, I think of Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, you would think, he never would have done all this crazy woke stuff, but there he is. His mouth is shut about anti-Semitism.
Well, there you go.
It really is about power. This is the dance you dance if you want power, and that's what a lot of these guys got in it for. All right, the book. How do you make, I remember it a little bit, the Stamp Act, and you got a whole chapter in here about the Stamp Act. How do you make a chapter like that come alive? If you're in seventh grade social studies and Mr. Powers is at the front of the room and he says, we're going to talk about the Stamp Act, your mind starts to wander, but it doesn't when you read this.
It's not about the Stamp Act. It's about the principle. So basically the British lost the British won the French and Indian War, and they doubled the size of their empire, and they doubled the size of their debt, and they said, you know what, now we got this big empire, we need to get some money, we got to pay down the debt. So let's tax the colonists because they benefited mostly from, the French and Indian War, which is not true. And so they kind of cavalierly assumed that because they had, the guns or the power, that we would just shut up and do as we're told. And when they taxed us, we paid the taxes. And what they weren't banking on was the fact that it was a completely different culture on this side of the Atlantic. This was a culture almost dramatically of Christians who really believed in these ideals that our rights come from God and we're free British citizens. You can't just be thugs and put a gun in our face and say, hey, give me the money. We believe in these things. The British didn't bank on that. And so the pushback, the kickback was huge. There were riots. That's one of my favorite parts of writing about the Stamp Act. There were these riots in Boston. I want to make a movie just to illustrate what happened. It's crazy stuff, what they did. And it was really, in many ways, the little guy versus the elites. They've been pushed around so long, and you have these very wealthy British elites that were over here kind of, as the governor and lieutenant governor. And people like John Adams writes about it, that it was nepotism. They had power. They had a good thing going. They're giving jobs to their friends. It's like the mafia. It's like, I'll give you a no-show job. You sit on that corner and we'll pay you. Just shut up and sit on that corner. There was a lot of that going on in the British government. It was very corrupt. And the Americans were like the Boy Scouts. They were like, you know what? We think corruption is bad. We are Christians. We believe that we've been governing ourselves for 150 years. And it really is amazing to see the culture clash, because the British were very cynical, very corrupt. And it's not just that they were not religious in the way most of the American colonists were. They were mocking of it. They were sneering and mocking. And it's kind of like some of the, if you think of the Manhattan elites or the Hollywood elites sneering at the people in the heartland who believe, all those suckers who believe in, family and those family values. It really was that kind of a culture clash. And I had not known this until I began doing the research for the book. I just read tons and tons of stuff, and I thought, wow, this is a story of good versus evil, of corruption versus innocent. I honestly didn't know that. And so when I started to write the book, the goal was just to tell these great stories, because there's amazing stories and heroes, and I said somebody needs to put that in one volume, not in 30 volumes or in 10, just one volume. Here's the whole story. And people kept saying, what's your angle on the revolution? I said, I have no angle. I just want to tell the stories. I think if you just tell the stories, that's beautiful, But the angle that came out, some of what I've been sharing with you, I didn't know that. And so it really does become a story of good versus evil. I absolutely had no clue about that until I began doing the research. So I think a lot of people will be surprised. I mean, I try not to lay it on thick, because I just want it to be it's a mainstream book you can give to anybody for Father's Day or for, just the standard, here's the story. But there's a subtext which I really had not been aware of. And it's quite dramatic. And then there are figures like George Washington. He's often said that people say, oh, he's a deist. Nonsense. It is such nonsense. These guys
What's a deist?
A deist is somebody who, doesn't really believe in God. They'll use terms like, he'll say providence, because, he's just talking about luck or fate. But baloney. I mean, Washington and all of that generation were really radical Christians. I mean, one of the big takeaways, the biggest takeaway for me is that they had what you would call, I guess the Puritans call it, a covenantal view of things, right? That if we behave righteously, God will bless us. And that goes to the Old Testament. So you have all of these, the Puritans are, they're like the Israelites. They say that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. So if we behave well, God will bless us. They really believed that. And John Adams and George Washington and many others, they wrote about this, and they said that, well, we're fighting the war. We've got to fight the war in a way that honors God. We're not going to stoop to the barbarities of the British. We're not going to bayonet our prisoners. We're not going to. We're going to fight righteously, and that idea is everywhere. And that's what I was saying. It's like, I didn't know this. So as I'm doing my research, I thought, wow, I didn't hear this in public school. You're not hearing this on PBS watching Ken Burns. They're giving you this whole other narrative, and it's not right. It's really and truly not right.
Hey, remember this. Ken Burns would not be the star he is if he didn't have that goofy haircut. Half of it is the haircut. The book is called Revolution, the Birth of the Greatest Nation in the History of the World, 1776 to 2026. Super Centennial Edition, a new accounting by Eric Metaxas, available wherever books are sold. Hey, real quick, Revolution. You mentioned January 6th. You had friends down there. And it reminds me a little bit, I remember there was a guy running down the hall apparently, and he said the spirit of 1776. They started to use our own kind of revolutionary kind of roots against us.
Of course they did.
Which was
really
really, right? Yeah.
They are ideologically speaking, they have everything in common. I mean, they're actually worse than the British, but they have everything ideologically in common with the British. It's like, we don't believe in your stupid rights come from God. Where'd you get that stupid idea? Your rights come from us, and we'll give them to you when we feel like it. I mean, that is as anti-American as anything ever could be. And that's where the left has gone. They weren't there, under Kennedy, but they have drifted there, and they are there now. And we need to, we just need to know that. And by the way, if anybody needs incentive to buy my book today, you know what book is also launching today?
But Jill Biden's?
Mike Pence's book is launching today, and Jill Biden's book is launching today. So please choose accordingly.
Mike Pence, he's a character. I know. I saw him pushing the book over the weekend. The Trump-Pence administration. I'm very proud of what we accomplished together.
Yeah, well, he's very proud.
He's very pompous and weird. Revolution, the birth of the greatest nation in the history of the world. Eric Metaxas, congratulations. This man can write. It's I love holding it in my hands. It is a book. I haven't purchased a new book like this in a long time. You know what I mean? Well, it's going to deliver.
It's a happy story, and many people have already told me that they can't put it down. That's what you want to hear as an author. I couldn't put it down. That's what I want to hear, because honestly, we all do need to know this stuff. This is important, and these are exciting stories and amazing heroes and some real villains. As you read it, you'll see some real villains whose names we need to know. So, this is our story.
Well, congratulations once again, Eric Metaxas. You bet, sir.
Let Century Management Solutions get you to your next medical appointment. They specialize in non-emergency medical transportation, connecting patients to care, safety, reliability, and on time. Their advanced technology platform seamlessly coordinates patients, healthcare providers, insurers, and transportation partners all in one powerful network. With over 200 trusted transportation providers, they deliver scalable solutions backed by real-time tracking and complete transparency. Go to SENTRYMS.com.